Okay, so this here is my GT40 build. I'm not going to name the manufacturer of the body because eventually I will be taking my own molds off this body after I've completely perfected it. I've done a lot of changes here. You know, my frame is completely custom. I've done the torsional rigidity values on the frame as well to get that thing to be as stiff as humanly possible without, of course, sacrificing too much weight. The reason I'm making this video, though, is to hopefully show another YouTuber that is doing body work on his own GT40 that there's a couple other ways of doing things. Now, these bodies are obviously made out of fiberglass. I think this one's polyester. It's polyester from overseas, which tends to be a little different than the variety we have here in the US. I know they did not go through the expensive vinyl ester. It's a lot more expensive, but nonetheless, it's a fiberglass body, chop strand mat, polyester, and gel coat. Now, this is obviously not a boat. And that being said, you can sand through the gel coat on these and down into fiberglass in some areas, and it's not a big deal. The gel coat on these bodies is thick enough that you can get them fairly straight without having to add filler. So, you know, a good example is on this body, there was a mold parting line that came through here. There was another one that came through here, then across on the top of the tail. Pretty standard for these GT40 bodies. Now, as you can see, my filler I have here is very minimal. The flows are nice, great transition. Right here it's a little high, then it drops into a little low point where the mold parting line was. So we'll add a little more filler here, but that's about it. I mean, if I have a 1/16 inch thickness in some of these spots, that would be a lot. You can see I marked out here where there's a little bit of a hump here, goes a little low. So we'll take this gel coat down here and here as well. Maybe add a bit of filler through here. Take a nice straight block this. As you can see, I've already blocked it once. And what I'm doing is I'm blocking it. Well, rather, let's start that over. What I'm doing is I'm taking a DA, going over it with 120, 180, something like that. That way I can create some nice, coarse scratch lines. Then we go over it with the dry guide coat. Okay, so you can lay the dried guide coat on. That'll fill in some of these scratches like I have here. And then you can block it and you can find your lows and highs. Then you can add your filler. So the reason I'm saying this is that, you know, you don't need mud this thick on these bodies. You can take the gel coat and fiberglass down, you know. Again, it's not a boat where we want to keep the thickness of the gel coat to protect the, you know, lower layers of the fiberglass from UV light. This thing's going to be painted, and that fiberglass will never care. So here, this may look thick, but it really isn't. I mean, you can see here where I've taken off just an absolute ton of the filler that I had put down originally. Probably put down too much, but there was one little hump or rather divot, that valley, sorry, that ran the length of this. So it needs a little more work, but I wanted this to have a nice kind of seamless transition. This side over here is absolutely perfect. I mean, the front here was terrible. A lot of waviness, and it still isn't great. I actually had to add a aluminum piece behind here that I epoxied in to keep this straight and flat. But we'll have to go over this a couple more times. You can see these different layers that I've had to add. Try not to add too much as once because I don't want to do a ton of sanding. I would rather do it in different steps. You can see here on the door, this gel coat completely untouched. So before I ever go in to add any filler, I'll take that block over there, do extensive sanding to the door, then guide coat, find my lows, my highs, sand them out with just the gel coat if I can and get it flat, and only then will I add filler. This up here needed some filler because this is my own kind of mess that I developed where I was trying to raise this lip to be flush. It wanted to sit down really bad. You can see here where I had also cut this lip to pull the gap forward more. So it's starting to get there. These doors are an absolute pain. You can see here where this kind of body line, this windshield area rises way up high and the door sits down low. But can't raise the door because I need this to be nice and flush. And then if I raise the door anymore, then this area is going to sit up. So lots of challenges with these bodies, especially with the doors. The body is far from perfect, but we're going to get it as close as humanly possible to perfect. That way we can take molds off these and finally have another supplier here in the US. So a lot more work to do. Hopefully I can get the rear clam pretty much done today, and then I may lay some Duratec on there. We have the Duratec here. So that's some good stuff. So hopefully we can get that on the rear clamp today and then just see how we're looking.